I loved doing the classes, so why don't I teach anymore? Okay, I'm going to tell you. Anybody want to hear? Yes. Good, okay. I went to a Parker seminar, and Jim was teaching this. Anybody here remember, any chiropractors have seen Jim teach that chart? And nobody knows what he's talking about, right? Okay. So I'm a concept therapist, and I'm teaching it, and I know exactly what he's talking about, but I also knew nobody else in the room did. I mean, maybe there were 3 or 4 people that did, but mostly they didn't. So when we went up to his class at night, and I said, you know, great class and all this, and I said, that's a concept therapy shot. He says, yeah. He said, you know concept therapy? I said, I'm an instructor. I said, Jim, I says, I have to tell you this. See, I didn't know he was an icon, because I said, nobody knows what you're talking about. I mean, I don't know if I would have said that if I realized, but it's a good thing I did, because he wasn't offended. And I went on to say, this is so important. These are doctors. This is the most important thing for them to know, is that chart. And nobody's getting it because you have so much to teach and so important and all, you know. I went on, I had to make him, you know, feel good. And he said, you want to teach it? I said, yes. He said, send me, you know, some kind of outline. And that was it. I taught on that program since 1969. And if it wasn't for the fact that Carl, well, Jim died, and then Carl and the college split, and some people know that, and I don't want to go through the whole story. I chose to go with Carl, which when I was talking to Warren, I thought that wasn't the best thing for me or for life. The reason being that I had an enormous audience there. And when that audience ended, when I went with Carl, the audience wasn't there. I had an illusion that there were actually other people out there in the world who would be really interested in what I teach. But that's not true. They didn't, you know, do you ever find that people don't really want to know the laws? They want to do rah, rah, rah. Yeah, they want to do firewalks. They want to get all excited, or they want to sit there and just pray and meditate. But they don't want to know the laws. Okay, but I didn't understand that. I was getting this great reception, you know, at Parker. That was wonderful for me. The reason I got cancer is because I couldn't get my work out. I wanted to teach what I teach so that people, regular people, who are not necessarily on a scientific quest and not necessarily on a spiritual journey, or at least they don't know they are. Of course, we're all on a spiritual journey, but they don't know it. But these people would understand that everything is energy, that they're energy, that we have a body-mind energy connection, and that would motivate them to go to chiropractors. It would motivate them to eat good, healthy food because it has a higher vibration. And it would motivate them to learn the laws here, because I didn't want to have to teach. How can I teach this? I mean, this is vast. I don't know. You know, when I think about what Thurman created here, I'm saying that it's so vast. So I just wanted to be, I'm trying to think of how to say this. You'll forgive me because I don't want anybody to get offended. I'm going to use, I'm Jewish, so it's okay if I say this. Jesus was Jewish too, you know? So Jesus is the master, right? Right? I mean, isn't that what he's the master teacher? I agree. I want you to know that, master teacher. But there was someone who came before him, John the Baptist, who said, I am not the great, I don't know his exact words, but I am not the great one. There's somebody coming after me. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be John the Baptist, so that people would go to chiropractic, people would come to concept therapy, people would get energy healing, they would do all the stuff that evolves their physical body, that evolves their consciousness, that evolves their soul. And some of them will actually want to learn the laws, because they'll get, you know, life, it doesn't work when you don't know it. See, what I did after I came to the conclusion, that was my mission. I mean, that was absolutely, when I started teaching on the program, they gave me other classes to teach, and my teaching is what this book is about, which is the laws and the mind, and how we send our vibration out into the universe, and it attracts back to us the people, conditions, circumstances, situations that become our life. But I gave them the other laws. I didn't tell them just the secret, you know, the law of attraction, like you could actually think that it's that simple. You got to understand law of polarity. You got to understand law of a cause and effect. You got to understand law of rhythm. You've got to understand that there's mass consciousness and there's a lot of other people's vibrations getting in the way of yours. Plus, you need to understand your mind and all the concepts that you've got. I don't just tell them, just think positive and everything will work. Have you noticed that doesn't happen? Gee, just create what you want, and if you don't, if Spirit doesn't bring it to you, it's because you didn't believe it. You don't have faith. Well, I had a lot of faith, but it wasn't happening that way because I had some concept problems. And one of them, believe it or not, one of them is that I really thought that the world wanted to hear what I had to say. I also thought that because I'm really good at what I do, the universe will send me all these people, and it will also send me the people to help me get the work out. When that didn't happen, that's when I got sick. It was that. Now, I'm not saying the reason because nobody did, this didn't happen. The reason was my concept. I'm in the third dimension. In the third dimension, you actually have to promote things. I mean, I never promoted it because I didn't think I had to. I could sit here. As long as I write my material, wow, that is 20 hours a day. I don't have to tell anybody. They'll just find me. But they didn't. So I was very disappointed, and I really got sick. I mean, obviously I got very sick. I'm over that now. You actually do have to promote. But one of the things that fooled me is I knew that concept therapy never promoted itself. I also remembered in the recesses of my mind that Thurman said, no, we don't want to. People have to find us because the people aren't ready, and we don't want to go through conventional opinions, condemnation, and ridicule and rejection. You remember that? That's written in various places. I had seen that, but I never could apply it to me. I said, no, they may not be ready for concept therapy, but they're certainly ready for me. I got to tell you something that happened. I wasn't sure if I was going to mention this, but I am, obviously. 2 years ago, I was sitting at the beach, and I was crying. I mean, I'm talking crying. And I'm saying, God, why can't I get my work out? What was the word? I suffer. Why am I suffering? That was the word. Why am I suffering? And this voice comes. You all hear the voice. I mean, you all know, I'm talking to people who know what I'm talking about, won't put me away, won't call the ambulance. No, okay, good. So I hear this voice, and it says, you think you suffered? If you had gotten your work out, that's when you would have suffered. You didn't go through ridicule, rejection, ostracism, criticism, condemnation, and crucifixion. Whew! You only went through being ignored. I must admit that's better than the other stuff. So I said, okay. Oh, now how I know it wasn't me figuring this out, listen to what came next. It said, you would have been just like Ludwig van Semmelweis. How many people know who he was? Ludwig van Semmelweis. Oh, you don't? I thought more people would know, like more than just me. Okay. Ludwig van Semmelweis. You will when I tell you who he is. Ludwig van Semmelweis was the doctor who discovered that the reason that women died in childbirth was because the doctors refused to wash their hands. And I hadn't really thought about him very much, I must admit. So when the voice came in and said, you would have been like Ludwig van Semmelweis, I said, ah. And then they said, you remember he went insane. He did. He cut his hand, he rubbed it in a cadaver, and then he waited for the infection to come, and then he waited to die. And after that, guess what? The doctors washed their hands. Isn't that exciting? Okay. So, since I didn't exactly want that to happen, I had to agree with them, whoever they are.